From Thursday's Norfolk to Friday's Suffolk then. From postcards from a young man to postcards from an old girlfriend. I sat all those years ago by the River Wensum in Norwich in Norfolk and did a little watercolour of the cathedral. Surprising really, considering I was living in a Larder Reaver estate. Put a stamp on it and sent it to my girlfriend at the time. A couple of years previously, another girlfriend, I don't want to make myself sound like Omar Sharif or something, had sent me a postcard of the tower behind us, fully occupying all four corners of the card, bursting out, sitting in the card like Magritte's apple sits in its room. It was my single known pictorial facet of the place at the time. I had no image of what was around it. When I finally saw it, I was struck by my own idiocy, not realising it was part of a much larger and incredibly impressive monastic foundation. And I was also struck by the late February sun, the dying February sun, laser beaming it pink as it died. I do like the late February sun, the dying February sun. It knows it's dying, but it knows reinforcements are on the way. The sun's dying now in a different way in September. Later this month, there'll be those ghosts of summer that float towards us. If you're going to walk with ghosts, though, where better than the Abbey grounds at Bury St Edmunds? Yep, that's the view I got. It was a muscular-looking beast, even just on the photograph. But in reality, it's something else, bristling and bursting with energy after all these centuries. Blank arcading, recessed Norman doorway, a little triangular porch reminiscent of Patrick's Bourne in Kent, turret tops. As an architectural walkthrough, you don't get much more compactness than that. The last surviving Regency theatre in the country, bringing starkly to mind the fact that there will be a last everything, won't there? There will be a last 20th century building. I think more imminently, and in terms of entertainment palaces, there will be a last 1930s, 40s or 50s cinema, last one of those great post-war splurges of building of cinemas. And when I was born in 1968 in Stourbridge, there were 5. By the time I was 14, there was one, the ABC in Lower High Street, the sound equipment was going wrong. I saw Blade Runner there, the last film I saw there. Goya's head smashing through to earth-shattering effect due to the faulty sound equipment, and a year later that was gone too. And I wonder which one will be the last one to be preserved for posterity. The dog and partridge, the weather vane atop, having retained its partridge but lost its dog, but haven't we all?
What are you talking about?
Well, I suppose I was using the idea of one's dog as a clumsy metaphor for you know, joie de vivre, gumption, brio, some quality that is lost.
As in, you old dog.
That's exactly what I was getting at. So the Rose and Crown is one of two pubs in Bury St Edmunds on the Heritage Register for National Historic Interiors. The other one, of course, being the more famous Nutshell, strongest claimant to the smallest pub in Britain epithet. It is actually 15 foot by 7, so that is pretty small.
Yeah, 15 by 7.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you think you'd get in there?
I know how many people you get in there, 104, and a dog called Blob, because I read it last night. So in 1984, around the time that I was buying Heaven is Waiting on 12-inch by the Dance Society from Sound Surround Records in Swan Centre in Kidderminster, they were putting 104 people and a dog called Blob in the Nutshell in Bury St Edmunds. Moyses Hall behind me, closed now, but depicting an image of William Cawdor on the admissions poster. He of murder at the Red Barn, which was nearby Polstead in Suffolk. I didn't know that until this morning. I once delivered an awful scheme of work to a Year 8 group in the now demolished Blake Valley School in Hensford based on that. But it was a real murder, I think 1828, a very famous Victorian murder. With all sorts of spectral happenings associated and all sorts of gruesome details as well. He was hanged here in Bury St Edmunds in front of a huge crowd, confessed his guilt, and afterwards some students dissected him, experimented with galvanism. They had a galvanic battery with them, like you do, and you know, passed currents through him like in Frankenstein, you know, the bit with the frog's leg and John Cleese, assembled and reassembled his skull, phrenologically speaking. My wife has got a phrenology head at home. I don't mean her head is of phrenological interest, although it might be, to the pseudoscience of phrenology, the business of matching the bumps in one's skull to imagined mental traits. But they found that, of course, it was rather advanced in terms of destructiveness, secretiveness, acquisitiveness, and was very underdeveloped in terms of benevolence or veneration. And 20 years later, you've got the Stanfield Hall murders in Wymondham, where we passed through the other day in Norfolk. In a similar vein, a horrible murder turned into Staffordshire flatbacks very, very soon after, depicting the actual murder, little souvenirs. What a funny race we are, you know, when yesterday's gruesome and harrowing murder is tomorrow's rubbish Year 8 scheme of work. Named, I think, for its physical properties rather than its biblical associations. Ask me what's remarkable about it, Lee.
What's remarkable about the Pillar of Salt, Daniel?
It is the first illuminated street sign in Britain, 1935, and doesn't it look it? looks 1935 in Britain as well, as opposed to anywhere else. And on top of all that, it's just such a tremendously satisfying looking thing, isn't it?
Splendid.
So I was thinking, again on the way down here, looking at the signs we passed on the road, quite a few of which had X's in them, about the place names. You don't get any place names with X in round our way, you know. Saxham, Laxfield, they seem very Suffolk, thinking about the nature of the place. And is there something about, you know, the names around here? I spend a lot of time in Lincolnshire, and there's a lot of B's there: Scremby, Asgarby, Lusby, Navenby, and there do seem to be constructions here that maybe they might be as a result of Danish incursion. You know, the hundreds of Suffolk, although thinking about the hundreds of Suffolk now, I think about those 104 people in the nutshell and Blob the dog. But I digress. You know, are they to do with that influence, I wonder? And furthermore, it made me think about pronunciation of local names. I was in a church in Lincolnshire, Mereham on the Hill, talking to the nice lady who was the key holder there, in amongst the beautiful blue box pews, and she scoffed at my pronunciation of Burr-le-Marsh, saying it was Borough-le-Marsh, and I think there's quite a lot of that round here. I'm told that what I say is Bungay is Bungay, Lowestoft is Lowestoft without any T, Blythburgh is Blythborough, or I think the one that really annoys them is Oldborough, which is like Aldborough, and it's the same everywhere, isn't it? Where we come from, there's contention with Shrewsbury and Shrewsbury, isn't there?
Can we just start up a new series now with you going around arguing with people about how their place names are pronounced?
Yes, yeah, actually we could. I've got form, actually. I've argued with a couple in Sutherland, in Nottinghamshire, about how to pronounce Sutherland. They were saying it's Southwell, and I was telling, no, it says in my book it's Southwell. So it's something that causes massive contention in this country, the pronunciation of local place names. And like I say, that Shrewsbury, I know the local team of the Shrews. I've just, you know, been brought up pronouncing it wrong. Is it wrong? Is it right? Does it matter? What do you think?
I think it probably should be. I don't know if it matters that much, but I think, you know, what the locals think it is what it should be.
Yeah. What about if the locals can't agree?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm from Wensfield, Wednesfield. We all agree it's pronounced Wensfield. If we can manage it, I'm sure everybody else can.
If it's good enough for Wensfield, I think that's, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if it's good enough for Wensfield. So, Bury St Edmunds then. Sugar beet, brewing expertise, rampant ecclesiastica. The sweet, the savoury, the secular, the divine. A right old mixture. Yesterday, when we went to Norwich, it was very much a pilgrimage into the past, somewhere I'd spent time before. Re-evaluating, seeing again through the years as they fall away. This isn't quite the same. I have been here before when my daughter was very little. We arrived late, time was short. I remember little. I remember the tower of the cathedral, lit up, illuminated in the dying sun, like some medieval pilgrim's vision. I remember things entirely unrelated to the town. Merely to our visit, I watched Logan's Run in the bed and breakfast, Jenny Agata's green dress, Peter Ustinov, the ice cave, the glowing dot in the middle of the palm, my daughter constructing a bed out of 2 chairs, pushed together. Today, I've seen the place properly. I feel I've got a handle on it. Whereas Norwich is shot through with little non-chronological iterations of itself, this place is far more separate in its layout. There's the top of town, a little Guildford, a little St Albans, a classic well-heeled retail district, bit of Regency, bit of modern, petering out at the edges. There are the workaday brewing streets up by the Royal Theatre, the Regency Theatre. And here, in this ecclesiastical theme park, down by the River Lark, the ruins around you. When I came here those few years ago, my daughter wasn't old enough to play in ruins. My son wasn't born. Both of them are too old to play in ruins now, more is the pity. All that's gone. But you can't play in every ruin. And you can't bathe in the light of every dying September sun. More's the pity. Okay, so we've moved from Norfolk yesterday to Suffolk today, and I was thinking as we were coming down in the car, does that mean anything? Do county boundaries mean anything? Are they, concrete entities with something immutable within them, or are they just arbitrary projections of some municipal imagination?
Some arbitrary projections from municipal imagination. Yeah, I wake up thinking about that quite a lot.
All right, okay. This is how I speak. There's nothing I can do about it. A lot of people object to it, I understand. But, going on in the same vein, if I may be permitted, if this was a training day, right, and I was to sit you on the floor of the hall and give you a piece of paper, write the word Suffolk above it, what would you draw?
As you know, as we discussed up in Norfolk yesterday, in another film, at another time. Yeah. I don't know the area very well. I really am a stranger to the area, but just the common perceptions of sort of flat farmland, perhaps, the odd windmill maybe, or something. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know the area, not brilliantly, but a little better, and I've got a lot in my mind when I think of Suffolk. I don't know whether it's all well, I do know that it's all correct. So perhaps I shouldn't say that. Perhaps it's my perception of it. My perception is full of a lot of beautiful things. I think of Sutton Hoo, of ship burials, of that cathartic sort of British samurai thrill of the Sutton Hoo helmet. I think of those little Monopoly-like beach huts at Southwold, and that sort of theatre for madmen only, macabre under the pier show at Southwold. I think about the windows flashing as the sun comes up on one of those great long, low-slung churches like Long Melford or Lavenham. I think of High Church, glimpsed from the castle.
so many very, very pretty things. But I have had a bit longer to think about it.
Well, now that all sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
But doesn't answer your original question about are they arbitrary projections of municipal imagination?
Okay, right, but in terms of individual imagination, I think they live in the imagination as real things, and I think that some of those things certainly are, maybe they bleed out into Essex and the surrounding counties, but I think some of those things are very, very Suffolk. I mean, I think
are borders important? Do they exist?
Yes.
Are they arbitrary?
I think,
county borders we're talking about, aren't we, rather than national ones?
I think both county and national borders are real. I think it's where you draw that line. It's the precision of the line, because, like I say, each county bleeds into one another, and obviously you step over the line one way or the other, it doesn't change the reality. But taken as a whole, I think they are entities. Yes. I think our perceptions of them probably say a lot about us as well, because I think of all those pretty things, don't I? It takes me a while before I start thinking about Lowestoft and container ports and shipping stuff I don't understand, and the Blytheborough door and the Black Shop and Justin Hawkins' YouTube channel. Yeah.
I think it's a chicken and egg scenario. Does a county identity come because we create it because we've drawn a border, or is the border drawn because the identity is already there? And I'm very much 50-50 on that, I must be honest.
Yeah. Just want to make it absolutely clear that I like Justin Hawkins' YouTube channel, by the way. It wasn't a disparaging remark.
He does, he's always talking about it.